Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 932 for the 16th of August, 2026. Richard Saunders coming to you from the Skeptic Zone studios, hunkered down because outside it's cold and grey and drizzly and raining and all sorts of things. Coming up on this week's show, we have part 2 of our interview with Ben Radford. Ah yes, Ben Radford, the famed paranormal, psychic and cryptid investigator. Well, this week, in a bit of a variation of what he normally does, Ben's going to be looking at the recent grilling in the US Senate of Dr Anthony Fauci, where he now famously took the Fifth Amendment. He refused to answer questions many times. And of course, this is seen by the conspiracy theorists out there as an admission of some terrible guilt. However, is this the case? Let's ask Ben Radford coming up at the top of the show. Also, in this week's show notes, I'm adding a link to a video, a lengthy video by Professor Dave from Professor Dave Explains, where he goes into this whole affair with Dr. Anthony Fauci and the grilling from the Senate in minute detail, coupled with Dr. Fauci's actions during the pandemic. Worth watching. Following Ben Radford, it's Maynard's spooky action with part 3 of his interview with George Hrab, who was here recently for Nauticon with the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. Maynard also talks to Lee Traynor. Now, Lee is the man, the very generous man, who gave many sponsorships so students could attend Nauticon. And we're going to hear about his background, and on this week's show notes you'll find a link to his foundation. And the students and everybody says, thank you, Lee, for your generosity. Then we have the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, read once more by Adrienne Hill in Canada, written by our news editor, Dee. Then to round off the show, in the TROVE Archives, we have part 2 of our series looking at media reports about the Bent Spoon Award over the decades. We're looking at the years 1986 to 1989. And I'm now the custodian of the Ben Spoon that lives here at Skeptic Zone Central. It's up there. Yeah, it's up there in the cupboard. And just the other day, I had the little plaque added, which says 2026 Dolly Adamson. Now, if you head over to Maynard.com.au, the website of our reporter Maynard, there's some very exciting news for Sydney-siders. Maynard will be screening Starstruck, the fabulous musical comedy from 1982. And this is part of the Sydney Underground Film Festival, and that screening will be in Marrickville on the 12th of September. Head to maynard.com.au for more information and to snap up those tickets. No matter where you are around the world, I hope your week has been good. Maybe you went to book club. I wonder what books you club about. Do book clubs mostly do fiction, the latest novel, or interesting stories like that? I wonder. Anyway, now it's time for me to run down those stairs, avoiding the Skeptic Zone cats who sort of wait for me outside the studio and trip me up, ever hopeful for a bit of breakfast or dinner. And I think I'll have some root beer-flavoured jelly beans. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, time to duck and cover under the table now because we've got my favourite Philadelphian, and that would have to be George Hrab. Hi, George.
Hi, Maynard. How are you? Good to see you. My goodness, it's been way too long.
I would never have thought that you would ever be in my flat, in my bedsit as you are now, as we call it, the Maynard International Studios Annex.
Yes, it's a lifelong dream of mine to be sitting on this green, beautiful couch.
Yes,
chatting with you. Very nice.
Look, and how have you felt about the way your country swung to the right under your current president? Do you think that would have happened no matter who your president was?
Oh, goodness.
Because if you didn't have a right president, the people who didn't like whoever the president was would also.
No, I don't think it would have happened under just anyone. But it also reveals that there's this undercurrent that exists there, which is so terrifying. And it's the, it's like you think you've cleaned your house, and then you go into the back of the closet and you just find the dust rhinos, you find the cobwebs, you find the silverfish, and you've assumed that you've sort of been living in something which is much more pristine than it is, and you find the reality that, oh no, there are not just dirty corners, there can be entire dirty floors, dirty areas, dirty bedrooms, and that's what it feels like. And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, how much cleaning is this going to take?
Well, the thing that surprised me is that there doesn't seem to be any immediate or obvious consequences to these actions that, although not illegal, seem a little bit improper, and there just doesn't seem to be any blowback.
I was just talking about this last night at dinner. Yeah, let me tell your listeners and your non-American listeners, like we are just as baffled. We are just as baffled, those of us that are against the current administration, and we don't understand why it's gotten to the situation it has. We do understand it, but at the same time we don't understand it, and there is this level of exhaustion, of just absolute exhaustion with every 6 hours, the news cycle revealing something to us unprecedented, which we couldn't have imagined, which then in a week will be old news. Not even a week, in days will be old news, and we'll just, this is the way things are now. So it is exhausting. I don't know what the answer is going to be. The only remotely okay thing that I think about is that every equation has to balance. Every equation on some level has to balance itself out. So the worse it is, or the crazier it is, the more one side of the equation has a larger integer, the other side has to have an equally crazy integer. So I'm hoping that there will be some kind of response and pushback. Whether it's in the next 4 years or 50, I don't know, but there will be some kind of an equaling of the equation.
Well, I'll have to ask you the second last question, because the last one's really hard.
Okay.
George, what's the point of anything?
Yeah. I think ultimately it's like a good cup of coffee. It's like a good song. It's a nice dance with somebody. It's a walk on a beach, which are all intangible and temporary. And yeah, is that the point? I don't know. Does there need to be a point? I guess there should be a point. There could be a point. You shouldn't point at people when you talk to them. I don't know. Somehow we muscle on and we find little moments of grace. Maybe that's what it is. Little moments of grace. Little tiny, like Franciscan moments of grace. Whether that could be just a good punchline, a nice rubber chicken, a box of Vegemite, whatever it may be. These little moments of grace that remind us that there can be an innocent, pleasurable second of joy. And if you find those and you're not hurting anybody, dive into it.
And the reason George isn't doing any music today is not because we asked him not to. It's because your guitar is currently in Pennsylvania, and your one hasn't arrived for Sydney. Actually, why didn't you want to fly with? Guitarists get very stressed flying with their guitar, don't they?
Yeah. It removed a whole level of anxiety not flying with my instrument, and my wonderful listeners, I put out a call. I said, if anyone could lend me a guitar, and numerous people got in touch, and to know that we'd be waiting for me here in Sydney as well as in Christchurch. I'm going to have a guitar there. Although this morning, I was just telling this to Bob Novella, I was feeling I haven't played a piano or I haven't played a guitar in about 4 days, which I start getting very itchy, and I have to play a chord. So I was literally grabbing a spoon from the kitchen.
I have my trombone over there. Is that any help?
Well, no, that wouldn't help at all.
Oh, okay. It doesn't help anyway.
Instruments, musical instruments.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. So yeah.
And also, because actually no one's been here, could you kind of describe my Maynard International Studios annex to people just for as someone who's just arrived? Like, what do you make of it? Describe a few things about it.
If you were to, we hear about purgatory, and we try to imagine what that might be like. And if you were to sort of imagine like an incredibly fun, personal purgatory, That's what we're going for. The fact that Anderson Cooper is just smiling at me from behind a calendar from 1983, I think it is, which happens to also be good for this year. What else can you say about the charming loveliness that is South Studio? What is the annex?
The Maynard National Studios Annex.
Annex. Yes. And
I guess technically it's South. Yes.
Yes, and you can't spell annex without an. Yeah. So that's what you need to remember, and I think it's wonderful. It's lovely. We're on the fourth floor?
Yep, on the third floor, overlooking, well, not a particularly wonderful vista, but it's not too bad because there's a main road on the other side of it that we can't hear or see.
Right. Can you say the city you're in? Am I allowed to say the city? So the fact that we're in Glebe, I mean, the fact that any places that named Glebe exists makes me very, very pleased because I'll keep saying Glebe through the rest of the thing. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Look, George, thank you very much. And if you'd like to point people to, he does do the music stuff, what would you point them to as your song or album that they should start with for their George Hrab musical adventure?
Where to jump in? I would say either jump in at the latest one, Terpsichore, or at Trebuchet. Trebuchet has sort of the biggest variety of music, whereas Terpsichore probably has the best album experience. You put Terpsichore on, you listen all the way to the end, top to bottom.
It's even got a secret in it, which I solved eventually.
If you want to think you solved it, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, I think I did, but I'm not sure I have.
Okay, this is your place. I don't want to pass any judgment. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those two is where you want to go.
Thank you, George. And just over your shoulder, there's Emma Peel and Steed from the Avengers.
Look at them. I mean, come on, look at her hair. Look at the bob.
Yep.
She's not in a cat suit, but still,
she's reading a book about cats that's shaped like a cat.
Oh, perfect, pure. Oh, I love it.
Every single one of my musical collection there is actually something free I've found from the 19th Nervous Breakdown, from James Brown to Saint Germain to Elton John's autobiography.
Which was, can you imagine what he would name it? What would Elton John call his autobiography? How about Me? I love it. It's so good.
Well, your parents will be very angry at the SGU if I don't get you back in a hurry, so we'll get you there now. And where can people find you on the web, as always, George?
Again, GeorgeHrab.com. Just Google HRAB, and the thing is, I'm the first 40,000 things, so we'll see you online.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
People get here, are they here?
Yes, not all of them. Some of them, and I've lost them. I don't know where they are now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here with Lee. Hello to you.
Hello, Maynard.
Look, I've heard that Richard just filled me in the ear that you're the one person who is sponsoring the scholarships that allowed several students. How many students have we got here coming to the conference?
There's 7 that I've sponsored with a full price ticket.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for doing that. And what ages do they range in?
They range from about 10, as far as I can see, to university students.
Oh.
So it was actually secondary and tertiary students that I wanted, but there were some families that had younger children.
All right. Well, I guess you can't start skepticism too young, as we heard with Jay talking about his science teacher in the US denying a bit of science there. That's almost incredible to believe that a teacher would say we didn't land on the moon.
Yeah. I spoke a couple of years ago with Emily Rosa, who got into the Guinness Book of Records as the youngest author of a scientific paper, because she'd written a paper at 8 years of age.
Wow.
Right? I spoke to her a couple of years after she'd written the paper, and she was in high school by that stage. And I asked, and this is in the United States, in Colorado, and I asked her what she was learning about biology and evolution. And she said, oh, well, evolution is the last chapter in the biology book, and the teacher never gets to it.
Ooh, that is interesting, isn't it? Yeah. It's almost like someone was doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
And tell me again, because you want to sponsor the students, what sparks your interest in wanting people to be more sceptical, and particularly young people, but people in general? Why should we be sceptical of anything?
Well, people should be sceptical across the board. I've spent the last 40 years of my life in Germany, and I was a member of the German Skeptics, and I taught English at university, critical thinking for science students, engineering students, maths and physics students. So what I wanted to do was continue that trajectory when I retired and came back to Australia. So with my students, when they're learning English, it's not a matter of learning vocabulary or grammar, it's learning about thinking, and thinking logically and expressing yourself so that people can understand how your thoughts are put together. And that is the basis of skepticism, right? Once you can do that, then you can take a claim, you can analyze it, you can pull it apart, And the funny thing is, you do that with scientific ideas, and you tend to agree with the scientists. You do that with an idea like dowsing, and it falls apart.
And what was the... Because when I think of Germans, I think of people that are pretty straight down the line thinking and don't get strayed from the path of skeptical thinking. But am I incorrect in thinking that?
Yeah, there's lots and lots of woo in Germany. I mean, it's the home of homeopathy.
Oh, of course, that was invented there, wasn't it?
Yeah, Samuel Hahnemann. Recently homeopathy has been taken off the shelves. At least it's been taken off what doctors offer. Right? But that's been a long battle, partly on behalf of the skeptics have been doing that on behalf of the medical establishment as well. But no, for me, skepticism was one of those things, critical thinking, it has to be taught. Just to give you another example of what can happen is I'm now living in Launceston, and I meet up with a group of friends every Thursday morning, and one of those, who is a skeptic, was recently scammed out of $30,000, right? Phishing scam followed by an apparent phone call from his bank, right? And he lost $30,000.
Wow.
Right?
Well, that's quite a complicated scam. I mean, my parents have had some things attempted on them like that as well. And I can understand if you haven't got your guard up, but then again, that's part of being skeptical.
Yeah, it is. I've just bought a house, and of course I was aware of conveyancing scams where someone logs into your email and then finds out, oh, you're buying a house. Well, I'm the conveyancer. Pay me the, however many $100,000.
Wow.
And the conveyancers were also well aware of that particular scam. So they got me to go to the bank, pick up a bank check and deliver it in person to their office.
Wow. Oh, that gets around it there.
Yeah.
And because you think with the digital age, things might get a bit better, but it's kind of gotten a lot worse, hasn't it, Lee, really?
Yeah, it has. And I think I retired at the right time because students were beginning to hand in ChatGPT-generated stuff. And, of course, once you get there, then, people are not thinking any longer. Right? They're just getting stuff from ChatGPT, handing it in, getting the sheet of paper.
Yes.
Well, you have to think. You have to think. Otherwise, you're going to be.
Well, from what I've heard, they could probably use you at Sydney University at the moment.
Oh.
Well, not so much favourite, but your big bugbear when it comes to conspiracies or medical things. Obviously, homeopathy is one of them. But what's the one that's your real bugbear that kind of that's my pet weird one, your pet woo.
Pet woo. I think free energy machines.
Oh yeah.
Right. People can start off with a true conspiracy. Yeah, there's a conspiracy. The oil companies want you to burn more oil, and they're willing to lie about the effects of drilling for oil and burning it. So there is a conspiracy there.
Yes.
Yep. But then they'll catch you with that and say, but I've got this machine and it's going to destroy the oil companies, and I just need another 50 grand to get it to market.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, and it's always that. It's always almost to market. It's never quite there. They just need that bit more. That seems to be the thread that puts them all together.
Yep, that does, yeah.
Wow, okay. And what are you looking forward to most over this next couple of days?
I'm looking forward to just meeting skeptics in Australia because, as I've said, I haven't been here for a number of decades. Making a number of new friends. And getting movement on my foundation, which is promoting critical thinking in young people.
And if people want to know more about your foundation, is it online? Where can we learn more about it?
Yep, leetraynor.com.
Right. We can go there and read and see what it's all about.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you for getting the young people along. I'm sure over the days I'll be having a chat to them, and I'll be very interested in why they were specifically interested in wanting to come to this. Was it the podcast? Is it the whole meeting scientific, being around a whole bunch of people talking about stuff in a skeptical way? It'd be interesting to find out, won't it?
Yep, thank you.
Well, thank you. Look, I've just got someone here. We're at the dinner sort of drinks part of the Thursday night, and who are we here, sir?
Oh, I'm Conway.
And what brings you along to this convention?
Oh, why not?
Well, that's a pretty good idea. Your specific area of skepticism, what is the one that interests you the most?
Like the silly medicine.
Ah, right, yes.
Stuff like homeopathy. I find that just amusing and funny.
Yes, and it's one of those areas, whenever I speak to people about medical conspiracies, there's things that they have real-world consequences quite quickly.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I just find it amusing how people can believe such drivel sometimes. That's an easy way and polite way to put it.
Well, thank you for coming along. Enjoy yourself. I'll probably bump into you again over the next couple of days. I'll go see if my burger's ready downstairs.
Yes, go for it.
Oh, look, we're still at the drinks and meet up on the first Thursday night here. And who have we got here?
Charlene.
And Clinton.
And where have you come from to visit our convention today?
From Brisbane.
Oh, wow, coming down. That's great. You're enjoying the Sydney weather?
Yes, it's fabulous.
And what do you think of meeting the SGU in the flesh, by the way? Have you got to have a word with them?
Oh, yeah. This is our fourth time we met them.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we met them here a couple of times. We were at Tam Oz the first time, and then a couple of others, and then we went over to the States one time and met up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we met George over there, yeah.
Wow. Oh, look, George, he's such a well-dressed man.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He gives you a run for your money, Maynard.
Oh, yeah. What got you into the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe? I'd be very interested to hear how you heard about it and started listening.
I started listening back in 2005, and I used to download them from Libsyn on a little MP3 player about 3 inches long, and I was driving trucks at the time, so I had plenty of time to listen, from Brisbane to Darwin kind of thing.
Not a lot of people know that truck drivers were amongst the very early adopters of podcasts.
Yes.
Because you can't listen to country music all the way on the AM radio. You've got to listen to something sooner or later.
Or rock and roll.
I'm not generalising there.
It makes driving the truck a lot more fun.
How did you get into it?
I tag along with him.
Oh, okay. What during the convention are you looking forward to?
Oh, just spending time with some really cool people.
It's like I haven't been to something like this before too, so I thought all board games is a bit weird, but everyone had a great time.
Yeah, we missed the board game bit, but we're here for the rest of it. So.
Oh, good. Well, I'm sure you won't make fools of yourself. Just behave yourselves. Don't be naughty. Don't yell out things.
No, we'll be restrained.
Well, thank you very much. Have a great time.
Bye-bye.
Last week, folks, you will remember we spoke to Ben Radford all the way there in Albuquerque, New Mexico, about hums and mysterious things, UFOs and all sorts of things. And Ben is back today to talk about something I guess is a bit more serious.
Hello, Richard. Always delightful to chat with you.
Now, I also want to talk to you about a recent blog post you did. And I didn't mention this on the last episode of the Skeptic Zone because it was a tight, packed episode. And I normally don't stray too much into politics, but this sort of goes beyond that. And we're talking about Dr. Fauci and his appearance before...
It was a Senate hearing.
Yeah.
The U.S. Senate, yes.
And anybody who watched that with half a reasonable brain would see it for the outrageous abuse of power that it was. And all these people were interested in was trying to get some sort of weird gotcha moment. And it was stretching into the bizarre. It was a farce.
It really was, yeah.
And you wrote a blog about that. What was your opinion?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And it's so in case you hadn't heard the outlines here. So, of course, Dr. Anthony Fauci was Trump's COVID czar, and he was charged with trying to navigate the pandemic here in the U.S. And of course, at least up until recently, the CDC was one of the pioneering organizations that led World Health. So other countries, UK, Australia, Germany, whoever else, they would, again, up until recently, unfortunately, look to us because of our expertise, the resources, the NIH and things like that. But of course, Fauci sort of became this symbol of the people's discontent with the lockdowns, with COVID vaccinations and mandates and masking and things like that. So that was sort of the gist of it. And you may be wondering, well, hold on here. I mean, this is he's since retired. He's 85 years old. He's no longer doing all that. And so the Senator Rand Paul and also another Senator Josh Hawley decided to put him up in front of this committee hearing and ask him a bunch of questions. And about everything from his response to COVID to recently released private diaries, which were kept on the government server, and then RFK Jr. found them and then passed them along. To a lot of people, the fact that Dr. Fauci took the Fifth Amendment and chose not to speak was somehow suspicious or indicated guilt or deception. And I can, if you only superficially understand what's going on, I can see that. But in fact, it's actually very clear what's going on, which is that Rand Paul has stated publicly that he's out to get Dr. Fauci. He said this repeatedly. He wants to see him in prison. And part of the reason is because Rand Paul has promulgated this bizarre and groundless notion that Dr. Fauci somehow created COVID or had actions that led to it.
The audience can't see I'm face palming at the moment.
Yeah, it is. And so when you again, if you just go by the sort of Republican bullet points of like, well, why isn't Dr. Fauci answering questions? He has answered questions. He's answered questions. He's testified dozens and dozens of times on this topic. He's not shy about giving his opinions, but in this circumstance, when the senator has the ability to and has brought him up there for the specific reason of trying to embarrass him and get him to say something contradictory, and try to catch any nuance. Well, hold on a second, you said this, but you testified 4 years ago, and this is a slightly different phrase.
Mm-hmm.
He very wisely, in my opinion, he and his lawyer recognized this was a trap. This was a gotcha moment. This was not an attempt to actually interrogate any mistakes that were made by Fauci or Trump or anyone else during the COVID pandemic. The whole point of this was to have this gotcha moment and put Dr. Fauci on the spot and make him look bad.
Yeah, it came across exactly like that. They did themselves no favors. But of course, to the hardcore believers in their side of politics, it was a wonderful moment. Look, Fauci's so guilty. But to everybody else with, as I say, half a rational brain, it was pretty obvious what was going on.
Yeah, and I have to say, as you know, Richard, I have a little bit of more of a dog in the game because I have an interest in public health. I have a master's degree in public health. And full disclosure, Dr. Fauci gave the opening to the class to our coursework. And I can tell you that having spent 2 years in that master's program in public health, which includes epidemiology and public health and things like that, we saw firsthand the struggles that he and doctors and nurses were going through trying to deal with the COVID pandemic. We saw this. We saw this in our daily lives. We saw it in our coursework, and we also saw it, of course, in the news. And so it was very frustrating to me and to others in my class, who again had some background, either because they already had backgrounds in public health or were medical doctors, to see Dr. Fauci sort of strung up as this straw man villain, this sort of James Bond villain, like he sort of went back in time and engineered this COVID pandemic for his own profit. The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. And I honestly, I find it offensive. And it's not because, Dr. Fauci did everything perfectly. No, mistakes were made. Absolutely. Mistakes were made across the board. That's not a problem. The issue is not that there were missteps in handling pandemics, because there were missteps everywhere. There is no government, no public health organization in the world, Germany, France, Argentina, Australia, that did everything perfectly. That's just not done. But from all the evidence is that he did the best he could with the information available, and to sort of then years later drag him up and put him in front of this Senate hearing is frankly despicable.
Well, yes, Ben, and that's now on the record for everybody to see forever. And maybe I think in the future it might be a great lesson in some university about how these things were perpetrated And I think that, and this occurred to me during the pandemic, but this whole thing was an outrageous and difficult and bizarre and novel situation. People did the best they could. You know, as you say, mistakes were made. Of course they were made. But what were we faced with? This bizarre situation, which nobody really knew what was the best course.
Yeah, I mean, this notion that somehow the World Health Authorities, including Fauci, knew what the correct thing to do was and intentionally did something different is flat out absurd. It's just not true. And especially when you see all the disinformation about vaccinations, about mask mandates and things like that. And, you know, people complaining like, well, Dr. Fauci shut down the schools. He did not. He advised governors. He advised President Trump. He advised other people. They're the ones that made the decisions. So that's his job as advisor. That's literally what he's hired to do. So he did not make that decision. If you're pissed off about the mandates or the lockdowns, talk to your governor. Talk to Trump. And again, what was the alternative, right? So Fauci and the NIH and the CDC were giving the best information they had at the time. It wasn't to take ivermectin horse paste. It wasn't to drink bleach. I mean, at one point, Trump had. Do you remember Dr. Stella Emanuel?
Yes.
So she was the one. And look, this is one of Trump's experts, right? Who's a gynecologist who claimed that that miscarriages were the result of demon sperm being left inside women who had relations with demons at night. I'm not making this up. This was the expert that Trump pointed to. It is surreal. It is just bizarre. And then to have them bagging on Dr. Fauci. Hold on a second. You're not upset about the crazy demon sperm lady? You're not upset about the drinking bleach thing, the horse paste thing? That's all fine. You're mad at the guy who suggested that we wear masks and stand 6 feet apart? Really? The other thing to keep in mind here, and this is an aspect that I wrote about in the blog that you mentioned that I think had been sort of overlooked in all the back and forth about Fauci, is that there's a long tradition of healthcare workers, public health officials, doctors, nurses, epidemiologists, and so on, being attacked and criticized and harassed and sometimes killed because of their jobs. Right now, as we speak, as we're recording this right now, in the Congo, in Africa, there is yet another Ebola outbreak, which is looking like it might be the biggest one yet. And there are healthcare workers that are trying to stem the outbreak, right? They're trying to get people to distance and to wash and to bury the bodies in a certain way. They're being attacked. They're being killed. I was researching in Pakistan, for example, polio workers, right? People trying to give people the polio vaccine, which has been safe and effective for decades. In rural areas, people are thinking that they're doing some sort of harm, and literally killing. Like, I think over 200 people were killed trying to help people stay vaccinated, trying to help people be healthy. And it's just so frustrating to see this same theme happening in the U.S. Senate, right? We should not look if mistakes were made, and sure, fine, criticize Fauci, no problem. Criticize everybody who made mistakes. That's not the issue. The issue is these conspiracy theories that are completely without basis, accusing Dr. Fauci of having engineered the virus or profiting from it or all these other crazy things, which again have no basis in reality. And all they're going to do is sort of legitimize the antagonism and the harassment of doctors and nurses and people who've spent their lives in public health. And it's just frustrating.
I know, it's outrageous. It's outrageous. I always think there are two groups in society who have an unfair burden, I think, and are very underappreciated. One are nurses. Nurses have a very difficult job, and teachers. Our teachers in our society should get a lot more respect, a bigger pay packet, because they go through a lot. They're put
Absolutely,
through a lot.
yeah. And so, just to wrap up, in my piece, I sort of zone in on again the conspiracy aspect of this, because it was kind of overlooked, right? People are talking about, well, Fauci did this, Fauci did that. Why isn't Fauci speaking? Well, again, the point of the hearing was not to get to the truth. The point of the hearing was not to find out the origins of COVID. If Rand Paul wanted to find that out, there's lots of people he could talk to. He could talk to Francis Collins of the NIH. There are dozens of experts, and epidemiologists and geneticists who can speak knowledgeably about the origin of COVID. In fact, Dr. Fauci has testified on that many, many times. So he's not saying anything because he's afraid that some truth is going to come out. He's not saying anything because he knows it's a trap. And it's the same thing, with 9/11 truthers, right? Well, hold on here. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Well, that has been addressed and dismissed. That's not a real thing. And the same thing with
It's like the moon, or the moon landing again and again and again, and decade after decade, we have to debunk the same old tired arguments. But as my friend Eugenie Scott said, our friend, of course. It's a passing parade. There's new generations grow up and they have to be alerted to this, because they don't know. They're learning things and they have to be alerted. Oh, and in the words of Peter Sellers, so much to learn, so little time.
Yes. Peter Sellers. Yeah, I always think I was reminded of a scene in one of his films where he falls backwards into a pond, a fountain, and I think maybe it's Bridget that says, "You'll catch your death of pneumonia, you will." And he says, "Yes, I probably will, but it's all part of life's rich pageant,
On that happy note, Ben Radford from Albuquerque, New Mexico, thank you very much.
Thanks. Always great to talk to you.
Everyone, this is Adrienne Hill coming to you from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada, and I'm going to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. This is newsletter number 253. Now don't forget, you can sign up to this newsletter at skeptics.com.au and get all the links for each story every other week right into your inbox. The full newsletter has information about events, even more stories, and more items of interest, so we do encourage you to subscribe. But now, let's see what our news editor, Dee, has for us this time. Hi all, says Dee. In the news this fortnight, we are witness to some political radicalization of medical discourse. The U.S. is currently experiencing its worst measles epidemic in 35 years, and RFK Jr. broke character in recommending children take an MMR vaccine. We anticipate how this conceding to logic may affect anti-vaccine rhetoric in the future. In a similar tone, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the chief medical advisor for the COVID pandemic during the Biden administration, was summoned to a Senate committee on his alleged mismanagement of the pandemic. Some implications and allusions to the true origin of COVID-19, of the conspiratorial nature. Additionally, our friends across the reef in New Zealand had their skeptical conference featuring the wonderful Skeptic's Guide to the Universe podcast crew, who we had the pleasure of hosting their Nauticon conference earlier last month. We hope their weekend went off without a hitch. In the meantime, read on, Dee. Okay, Dee, I'll do just that. Trump signs an order to limit childhood vaccines and split the MMR shots. President Trump's order has been described as, quote, disheartening, end quote, and, quote, dangerous, end quote. His justification, quote, decades ago, children received only a small fraction of the vaccines required today. In those times, people were much healthier, and of course the high rates of autism now observed did not exist, end quote. Meanwhile, RFK Jr. recommends children get measles vaccine amid outbreak. This is a shocking backflip by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., recommending that parents immunize their children against the worst measles outbreak in the U.S. in 35 years. After a long bout of anti-vax sentiments, is the other shoe about to drop? Furthermore, natural immunity is not better than vaccine immunity. There is a trope among anti-vaccine activists that immunity from contracting and surviving a disease is superior to vaccine immunity. In a nutshell, the anti-vaxxers are wrong. And finally, how vaccine skeptics use storytelling to create medically inaccurate messaging. As long as there have been vaccines, there have been people who doubted their science and safety. Is the practice of dry needling better than acupuncture? Dry needling is a growing treatment in physiotherapy, barely different from the quackery of acupuncture. But is it different enough to warrant recommendation? It allegedly provides short-term pain relief, but no more than could be achieved with regular exercise. And as a side, this is also very prevalent in Canada, but there is also a more specific model called IMS, or intramuscular stimulation, and it requires a lot more training, but also hasn't really been studied. And what's the difference between IMS and dry needling, you ask? Well, a quick distinction would be it targets nerve-related muscle shortening, and it's often used specifically for chronic pain. And there might be some possibility for it. There's not a lot of evidence. But at least they don't talk about chi and chakras and meridians and things like that. All I know, I've had it before, and it hurts. I had a physiotherapist years ago who was trained to do IMS for my frozen shoulder that I got. It's actually more than 20 years ago now, so long before I started this journey and found out that there might not be anything to it. Did it seem to help? Possibly. Hard to say. Maybe exercise and time would have done the same thing, with a lot less pain. Fauci's COVID conspiracy theories become political cudgels. Now, there's a word I haven't seen in a long while. A cudgel. Late last month, the Republican-run Senate committee convened to scrutinize Fauci's management of the COVID pandemic. They wielded conspiracy theories of the virus and its viral vaccines as benighted weapons to vilify Fauci and to absolve their own administration of any mismanagement. Arts Centre, Melbourne, to feature psychic John Edward. American so-called psychic John Edward is set to perform at the Arts Centre, Melbourne in December this year. We wonder who approved this production, and if the ACM is going to make a habit of grandstanding nonsense. As a side note, a $160 ticket does not guarantee a personal reading. I call that a ripoff. Reincarnation. What science says and doesn't? This is a curious and very long, meandering article from Skeptic.com. And just to clarify, that's the US magazine. Regarding a case study that is allegedly the smoking barrel for the study of reincarnation. It talks about brain structures of memories from past lives and recounted dreams of how they died before their birth. In reality, it's likely that any and all recollections of dreams or from imagined memories could have happened to anyone on the planet, past or present. It's just a statistical certainty that someone will eventually get anything right. Cicero and the value of skepticism. The word skepticism has often had a bad reputation, yet the original meaning of the word from the Greek skeptikos is something along the lines of, quote, someone who inquires and reflects on things, end quote. Can skepticism be a philosophy of life rather than just an epistemic attitude? Items of interest. Obligatory UF objects. America is finally taking extraterrestrials seriously. Seriously? This is a long, very long, article from Time magazine with an unsatisfyingly open ending. It detailed the transformation of society, pop science, and government, particularly in the United States, around the cultural enthusiasm for unidentified aerial phenomena in the last 80 years. And is there a UFO base on the moon? The short answer, nope. The issue I take with the new UAP Science Advisory Council is, quote, when you're a hammer, end quote. And so the saying goes on. Silly story of the week. Ooh, Rhode Island man sights Bigfoot in Connecticut. There was a reported Bigfoot sighting in Voluntown, Connecticut, which has sparked curiosity and a few jokes after a Rhode Island man claimed he encountered the legendary Sasquatch. This seems to be a long way from traditional locations. But with those long legs, who knows? Might not take him that long. Nope. Story of the week. UFO hunters catch nothing but the cops. A UFO summoning event in Arizona resulted in a close encounter with the police after neighbors called police about the throngs of would-be contactors walking through a private golf course. Oh dear. Well, that's all for this week. Now, I want to return to the word cudgel that I stated I hadn't seen used for a long time earlier in the newsletter. For those of you who need a reminding about what a cudgel is, according to etymonline.com, a cudgel used as a noun is a, quote, short, thick stick used as a weapon, end quote, and comes from the Old English kitchel, or, quote, club with rounded head, end quote. I discovered that its modern usage is most likely to be seen as was used in this newsletter. A political cudgel, according to multiple sources I found including sinomene.com, is used to refer to strong-arm tactics, forceful statements, aggressive debate, and or economic pressure to achieve political goals. There seems to be a lot of that happening these days. I wonder if it is particularly aggressive. Could it be referred to as a skookum political cudgel? Well, that's all for this week, and it's time for me to go upstairs, grab my car keys, and go to Canadian Tire to buy a kayak and a hockey stick. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill in Skookum Studios, San Cudgel in Calgary, Canada.
TROVE.nla.gov.au, of course, the online directory resource. The wealth of information from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia, plus some other references from here and there. And this is part 2 of our look for newspaper references to winners of the Ben Spoon Award over the decades. And this week we're looking at the years 1986, 1987 and 1989 with Peter Brock, Anne Dankbar and Diane McCann. And we begin with the pages over at the Canberra Times, dated the 19th of April 1987. Now, with a little bit of background, Peter Brock was a very famous racing car driver in Australia, a wonderful racing car driver, won many awards and was hugely popular. However, in the late 80s, he was pushing something he called the energy polarizer, which was based on the fictitious orgone energy. Now, this was a little box that you inserted in your car under the bonnet, under the hood, and the vague claim is, of course, it made the car run better fuel economy and so on. There have been no end of these devices over the years. This device led him to break up with General Motors Holden at the time, with whom he was in partnership. Anyway, getting back to the Canberra Times on the 19th of April 1987. Skeptics Award Spoon to Brock. The Australian Skeptics Ben Spoon Award was awarded yesterday to racing driver and businessman Mr. Peter Brock for his controversial energy polarizer. The president of Australian Skeptics, Mr. Barry Williams, announcing the award, now in its 5th year, said,
"It's sort of a Nobel Prize for nuttiness, an Oscar for irrationality."
The polarizer, when fitted to a car, was said to, quote, realign the molecules to make the vehicle run more smoothly and improve its performance using energies unknown to science, end quote. The Skeptics' first $1,000 journalism award went to Mike Willesee for a 2-part television investigation of the Jewish psychic Mr. Uri Geller. And it's ironic that in some weeks to come, as we're covering Ben Spoon prizes, Mike Willesee actually wins one later. Anyway, second prize in the category went to science writer Bob Beale of the Sydney Morning Herald for an article on creationists and the Museum of Australia. About 100 people attended yesterday's convention at the Australian National University. And from the Sydney Morning Herald, dated the 20th of April 1987, Brock impresses the Skeptics. Peter Brock, the racing driver and car designer, has won the Australian Skeptics 1987 Ben Spoon Award. Brock won the award for his energy polarizer device, 2 opposing magnets separated by crystals and embedded in resin. Xanax, a mineral exploration company, was runner-up. The company reputedly paid the spoon bender Uri Geller $250,000 US to find gold. The inaugural $1,000 prize for good skeptical coverage was won by Michael Willesee for his story pitting Uri Geller against a magician who could reproduce all his tricks. And briefly from the Canberra Times, dated the 20th of February 1987, Holden axes Brock, Melbourne. Holden severed its association with racing driver Peter Brock yesterday, ending Australia's most successful motoring racing partnership. Holden announced it had terminated the relationship because of a dispute over Brock's new energy polarizer. Invented by Brock and his business partner, Dr. Eric Dowker, and I think he was a chiropractor, the device is said to harness orgone energy in a vehicle, producing a car which runs better, is quieter and more efficient. And the article goes on with more details about the partnership and so on. Although in this report, orgone is spelled incorrectly. It's spelled ergon, E-R-G-O-N. Anyway, and briefly from, what do we have here? Again, the Canberra Times, dated the 22nd of February 1987. And there's a big cartoon with a car with a giant sort of tank on the back of it. And it says gobbledygook. And Brock is trying to explain to somebody energy polarizer. The story is called Brock Forced Us Out, Holden's. And again, there's a lot of other details about the business relationship, but the important note here is a paragraph that says, Perry, P-E-R-I, Integration, founded by Mr. Peter Brock and his chiropractor partner Dr. Eric Dowker, was responsible for the invention of the controversial energy polarizer, which Holden says it has not had the opportunity to test. Mr. Brock said on Friday night that Holden's had used his controversial energy polarizer as a smokescreen to justify the company's split with him. Controversial. Well, so much for Peter Brock and his energy polarizer. We might cover that story in more detail another time, maybe in the Book of Tim. And needless to say that to this very day you can still buy Orgon energy devices. Now let's go to the year 1987, and the winner of the Ben Spoon Award that year was Anne Dankbar. And over at skeptics.com.au in the list of winners, 1987, Anne Dankbar, Adelaide psychic whose discovery of the Colossus of Rhodes created something of a media stir until it was shown to be modern builders' rubble. And we turn to the pages once again of the Canberra Times, dated the 3rd of April 1988, talking about the 1987 award. Outrageous psychic scam wins award from skeptics. Sydney. An Adelaide clairvoyant who claimed to know the location of the long-lost Colossus of Rhodes won the Australian Skeptic Association Ben Spoon Award yesterday. The award for the, quote, most outrageous psychic scam, end quote, followed Ms. Anne Dankbar's claim last year that the ancient statue was lying off the Greek islands. The association, holding its annual convention in Sydney over the weekend, also presented the $1,000 Skeptical Journalism Award to an ABC television journalist and researcher who disproved claims that a small plastic device improved cars' fuel efficiency. The president of the association, Mr. Barry Williams, said Mr. John Millard and Mr. John Dawes had shown the best traditions of skeptical journalism in their report shown on the Investigators. And the Investigators was a very popular consumer affairs program of the time. But Mr. Williams said there had been no successful nominations for the $20,000 Skeptic Challenge Award made to any psychics who could prove their claims under scientifically controlled conditions. About 150 skeptics took part yesterday in discussions challenging UFOs, creation science, astrology, and mythical animals such as the Loch Ness Monster. Today, panel discussions will focus on traditional versus alternative medicines, including New Age crystal healing techniques. The 600-member association, which was established 8 years ago, aims to encourage rational debate about so-called supernatural and psychic events. And from the Sydney Morning Herald, dated the 3rd of April 1988, Psychic's Colossus, a rip-off. The Adelaide clairvoyant who claimed she had psychically discovered the long-lost Colossus of Rhodes has been awarded the Australian Skeptics Ben Spoon Award. The dubious honour was bestowed upon Mrs. Anne Dankbar yesterday for being, in the skeptics' eyes, the, quote, perpetrator of the most outrageous psychic rip-off of 1987, end quote. Mrs. Dankbar, 56, threw the archaeological world into a spin last July with her claims that the 2,000-year-old, 32-metre-high bronze and stone statue, one of the 7 wonders of the world, was lying in several pieces in the sea off Rhodes. A brief report here from 1987, the 8th of July from the Canberra Times. Machine-caused Colossus fragment. Rhodes, Greece, Tuesday, Reuters. Marks on a rock fragment believed to be part of the Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, were the work of a mechanical digger, archaeologists said yesterday. Australian clairvoyant Ms. Anne Dankbar led divers to the rock. The experts said the find was not a hoax, as the scale of the piece could have fitted into the knuckles of the statue's hand. The Colossus, a 30-metre statue representing the sun, was erected in 280 BC and toppled by an earthquake in 225 BC. And to round off, we're going to go to the year 1989 and look for references to Diane McCann. From the Skeptics website, Diane McCann, who wrote an article that Adelaide was built on one of the temples of Atlantis. So let's have a look now, and again with the Canberra Times, dated the 2nd of April 1989, in a column called Reflections by Ian Warden. We have a news item here. The Canberra Skeptics, and of course that's the Australian Skeptics hosted in Canberra, their 5th annual convention opened at the National Science and Technology Centre by a world-famous newspaper columnist, awarded their Ben Spoon Award to Diane McCann of Adelaide. McCann, who owns a company with the confidence-inspiring name of Accelerated Business Technologies, insists that the city of Adelaide is founded on one of the major temples of Atlantis, and that she is qualified in such disciplines as neuro-linguistic planning, I think that should read programming, psychoperistolic massage, chakra balancing, and past life regression, and holds firewalking evenings. The skeptics, who err on the side of churlishness, declined to believe any of Ms. McCann's claims or to believe that any of the fields in which she claims expertise is a real thing. A book, Skeptical, was launched at the convention. It is a handbook on pseudoscience and the paranormal and offers a short, skepticism-encouraging essay on about 40 New Age enthusiasms, including aromatherapy, iridology, tarot cards, near-death experiences, and dolphins. And finally, from the Canberra Times once more, the 26th of March 1989, Skeptics Scratch for Silly Claims by Keith Scott. There was a lack of silly claims in 1988. In fact, 1988 was such a bad year for way-out suggestions that the Australian Skeptics had trouble finding candidates for their annual Ben Spoon Award. The Skeptics present a Ben Spoon annually to the person they judge makes the most preposterous, paranormal, or pseudoscientific claim of the year. Some previous awards have been given to Tom Ward's, the world's silliest clairvoyant, the Melbourne Metropolitan Board of Works for endorsing a psychic archaeologist, Anne Dankbar, who claimed to have found the Colossus of Rhodes, and Peter Brock for his energy polarizer. This year, however, was shaping up an almost silly claim for a year, until, that is, Diane McCann came up with a quite remarkable claim in the Adelaide-based magazine The Golden Age, exploring new horizons in the New Age. According to the president of Australian Skeptics, Barry Williams, there was
very little overt activity on the psychic, paranormal and pseudoscientific fronts
at all until Ms. McCann saved the skeptics from the embarrassing position of having nothing in particular to be skeptical about. In an article in the Golden Age, which also had a message from the Lord Mayor of Adelaide, Steve Condis, and stories on dolphins, abductions by UFOs, and palmistry, Ms. McCann made the somewhat surprising claim that Adelaide was, quote, founded on one of the major temples of Atlantis, end quote. Australian Skeptics was unsure whether Ms. McCann meant that Adelaide was actually built on the site of one of the temples of Atlantis, or whether she meant that the city's layout was the same as an Atlantean temple, so it wrote to her and received a reply in the nick of time last week. The reply, as it turned out, was even more surprising than the original article, although it appeared Ms. McCann had changed her story a little. In her letter, she told the skeptics that, quote, I cannot give you any more information on the fact that Adelaide is built on an ancient Lemurian site, but it is well known amongst the psychic people, and actually anyone who comes here is immediately impressed with the energies and the love this city generates, end quote. Lemuria, according to the Encyclopaedia Britannica, was a hypothetical prehistoric continent in the Indian Ocean, supposedly now represented chiefly by Madagascar. Even more astonishing, given Miss McCann's claim about the ancient temple generating energy and love, is the encyclopedia's description of lemurs, who are supposed to have inhabited the Lost Land. Britannica has it that lemurs existed in Roman religion and, quote, appearing in grotesque and terrifying forms, haunted their former homes and visited relatives and friends, sometimes causing them injury, end quote. Australian Skeptics did some checking of its own on Ms. McCann and discovered that she had a company called Accelerated Business Technologies, which handled the South Australian end of a business motivation course called Money and You. Its parent group is the Accelerated Learning Institute, which is trying to set up what it calls a global energy network to solve problems such as hunger, trade, and third world poverty. The Institute runs motivational courses which are very much part of the so-called New Age. Ms. McCann is apparently qualified in neuro-linguistic programming, educational kinesiology, psychoperistolic massage, chakra balancing, and past life regression. She is also co-founder of the Australian Institute of Rebirthing, holds firewalking evenings, and believes that when a critical mass of people are together, major shifts occur. Addressing the Skeptics Annual Convention at the Science and Technology Centre in Canberra yesterday, Mr. Williams said,
I have a great deal of delight in announcing that Miss McCann, who may or may not be related to Terry McCann of Minder, is the recipient of the 1988 Ben Spoon Award.
The Skeptics' More Serious Award to the journalist who produced the most skeptical story of the year went to Robin Williams from the ABC Radio's The Science Show. Mr. Barry Williams said that Mr. Williams represented a
voice of rational thinking
in Australia and produced high-quality programs which maintained people's interest in science and rational thought. And there is one more column which goes on to other matters about the convention at the time, but we won't stray into that because I think we've captured the essence of what we were looking at, and that was references to Diane McCann. Well, there we are for this week. We've covered the years roughly 1986 to 1989. And indeed, it says here 1988, there was not a winner of the Ben Spoon Award for that particular year. And sometimes, especially in the early years, they would award the Ben Spoon for the previous year. So sometimes the years are a little bit mixed up, but that's okay. And in the next installment, I think we'll be looking at the years 1990 to 1992 or 3, covering such people or organisations as MAFU, M-A-F-U, which seemed to be a channelled entity, Women's Day magazine, and the creationist Alan Roberts. And since there are so many, I mean there are over 40 winners, we might just choose selected years over the course of the next few weeks. This has been a very interesting segment for me because I'm discovering all sorts of little bits and pieces about people I've heard of when I've been reading lists of past winners, and I'm beginning to learn a little bit more about why they won the Ben Spoon Award. But you can jump the gun. You don't need to wait for the next episode if you so desire. If you go to skeptics.com.au and click the Ben Spoon Award link at the bottom of the page, you too can see a list of past winners. If you're so inclined, you can look them up at Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, because when you go there, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Thank you to the PayPal and Patreon supporters at skepticzone.tv. You wonderful people who contribute to the show every week or every month. Means the show keeps going. And in fact, just in the last few days, I've added... where is it? Up here. Oh, I have to stretch to reach that one. A sort of a sound covering that goes above my head, sort of. Hope it doesn't fall down. All this is to stop echo, the enemy of every podcaster. Echo. Coming up on next week's show, we continue our series in Trove of references to the Bent Spoon Award. We're going to be looking at somebody called Mafu, Women's Day magazine, Alan Roberts, who was a creationist, the Steve Vizard show on Channel 7 many years ago, and the Commonwealth Attorney General. Why did all those people and organisations win the Bent Spoon? Also on next week's show, we have the Think Tank. Oh yes, with Dr. Sue Urachi, our reporter Kate Thomas, and myself, having a nice cup of tea and toast, and we discuss things like quackery in pharmacies and should you talk loudly on the phone when you're in, say, a salon getting your nails done. But until then, this is Richard Saunders signing off from a soggy Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
Well, we're here at Skeptics in the pub from last week. Isn't time a strange thing? This was a week ago. We're here a week ago. We've time travelled. I'm here with Lara Benham. Hello, Lara.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Sue Urachi. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Richard. That week went so quickly.
It really did. I don't think we've left this table. We're going to play the dice game. This is where you at home and we here get to use our magical prediction. This is where you at home and we here get to use our magical predicting power. We've got a D10.
Yep, it's beautiful D10. It is translucent green plastic.
Like a frog.
No.
Not like a frog. Like a frosch, as they say in Germany. All right. I'm going to predict ahead. I'm going to say the first roll out of 10, it's going to be a 10.
Sue? Mine's a 4. I'm going to go with a 5.
All right. Here it comes. 9.
No deal.
No deal that time. This time I'm going to go for a 6. Sue?
A 3. 1.
Okay, here we come. 9. Yeah.
I made sure it was jumbled.
Okay. This time I'm going to predict 9.
9. 4.
All right, here it comes. 10. Unbelievable. Oh dear. Okay. Last roll. This is a supplementary. I'm going to predict 5 for Susan Gerbeck.
Last one I'll do 8. 3.
Okay. 6.
Once again, absolutely nothing. Not one of us has got anything correct, which I swear is against statistical average.